How does Charlie Woods' swing compare to his dad's? Tiger Woods' swing specifically is 2000 award-winning swing. Let's have a look and compare them side by side. So on the left we've got Charlie Woods and on the right we've got Tiger at Augusta in 2000. So first we'll note, obviously Charlie's going to be a lot smaller than his dad, but we've got very similar postures. Nice straight back, arms hang just a little bit in front of the shoulders. Very, very similar here. Obviously, like I said, there's going to be a difference in the tilts just because Tiger's 6'1", whereas Charlie's going to be a lot smaller with him only being 13, 14. So let's take it away. Let's have a look on this takeaway. So let's take them both back to shaft parallel. So we'll see a nice wide takeaway from Charlie, and we'll see again a nice wide takeaway from Tiger, but a little bit different here. Tiger has commented to Charlie to copy guys like McIlroy or Justin Thomas because they're more of a modern day swing. You'll see here, if we just put some lines on the hands of both these players, we'll see that Charlie will take the hands a little bit more on that line, whereas Tiger will take those hands a little bit more up and out. You will see though that both of them have this look where that shaft is pointing at the stomach, at that shaft parallel position. You'll also notice probably Tiger's got a little bit more hip turn than Charlie. Might be the camera angles, we'd have to get on something like 3D just to prove that. So a little bit different there in terms of the takeaway. Let's bring them both to halfway back. See any sort of differences here. So you'll see Charlie's hands are sort of in the middle of his chest. Camera angles, like I say, are slightly different. Let's have a look. So a similar sort of position. So you'll see here, Tiger's got that shaft a little bit flatter and his hands are a little bit more out in front of his body, whereas Charlie's hands are a little bit deeper and that shaft's a little bit more upright. More of a modern sort of swing that Tiger has self-admittedly, if you listen to him on interviews, he said to Charlie not to copy his swing, but to look at guys, like I've said before, like Rory, who create a tremendous amount of power. So slightly different there. It's more of a modern swing, hands a little bit deeper. So let's bring them both up to the top. So let's stop at the top. Same with Tiger. You'll see subtle differences here. One, because of Charlie's age, he's 13, 14. He's not got the strength of a Tiger 24-year-old working out in the gym. So you'll see that Charlie's got a little bit longer swing. That club face is it's a lot weaker than it used to be. Charlie used to have that club face really strong, but it's in more of a neutral position, very similar to Tiger at the top in terms of that club face in relation to the left wrist. You'd probably say Tiger, looking at it, is maybe a touch stronger, but not a whole lot in it. It's very difficult with the different camera angles. What you will see though is Charlie's shaft is a little bit more across the line. Tiger's a little bit more neutral there. And as well, look at the position of the right shoulder. So Tiger, that right arm, that right shoulder, right elbow, should I say, is a little bit more in front of his body, whereas Charlie is a little bit more behind. You probably, because he's a little bit flatter in that arm plane than Tiger, as we saw on the takeaway, and also he's probably got a little bit more rotation in the thorax than Tiger. It's also very similar if we think about it to McIlroy, whereas that elbow does get a little bit behind. Now, in terms of transition, I don't like using freeze frames for this, so we'll both look at them in transition. We both see, watch how they start that move down. Can you see that? Down with the lower body. Let's have a look on Tiger. You'd probably say Tiger starts that transition a little bit earlier than Charlie. If you can see there, look how it's a bit more stationary, whereas Tiger in 2000 is a little bit more dynamic and a little bit more down through that pelvis and down through the rib cage. Charlie does get there, but it's just a subtle bit later if we watch. So he does start to dip, but it's just not as pronounced as Tiger in 2000. So I'll get rid of those lines. So there's subtle differences there in terms of how they transition and where they transition, but we both see them both increasing that knee flex and getting that pelvis and thorax working down. You'll see because Tiger's hands are a little bit more up and out in front of him, those hands are going to be more in front of his body. That club is a little bit, like I say, more in front of him, whereas Charlie is a little bit more behind him, which again for Charlie will help him get up on the ball and hit high draws generally, which is a great move when you're younger to hit it powerfully, whereas Tiger in 2000 was hitting those power fades, which he was strong enough to hit and still get the distance, because obviously especially back in 2000, those fades did not go as far as the draws. Slightly different now with the difference in equipment, but you'll see they both sort of create that power squat move, increase of flex, whereas Charlie, like I said, those hands are just a little bit more behind his body, more McIlroy-esque. So let's bring him down to lead arm parallel. So bring Tiger down. Like I say, you'll see again, those hands of Tiger's much more in front of the body, whereas Charlie's a little bit more behind him. That club face, if we look at where it's pointing more up to the sky. Stronger position will allow him again to hit those draws up. You know, when you looked at him in the PNC last year, he does hit some little power fades as well, but it's very common in junior golfers to see much of a stronger face, just to promote they've not got that strength there in their upper body, so they can't get it out as far. So a stronger club face with junior golfers definitely help. You'll see Tiger, that face is a little bit more neutral on the way down. Like I say, those hands are more in front of his body. It's something we see with junior golfers. We get the hands behind, big drive up with the lower body, gets them a lot of speed. Whereas obviously when you're an adult, you've got the strength, so you don't need to do that. So let's bring him down. You'll see that knee start kicking in. Really love that position. Bring Tiger down to the same point, or a similar point, whereas cameras are a little bit older in 2000, so we can't quite get still the same freeze frame, but you'll see lovely angle there. I love this position. I harp on it about it in a lot of my analysis videos, where that trail shoulder and elbow are in line, just allows a lot of the forces to dissipate through, rather than when we start getting this shoulder behind us, we can see some shoulder issues. Love that position. Let's bring Charlie a couple of frames down. Again, love that. Shaft a little bit inside, so he's probably hitting a draw here. Let's bring them both to a similar position. You'll see Charlie's a little bit more flat-footed than Tiger. Tiger's a little bit more up on that right foot. A little bit more of a sort of 2000 style in the fact that that foot's a little bit more up and the chest is a little bit more down. It's still going to be open if we look at it on 3D, but if you look at Charlie, look where that thorax is pointing, it's a little bit more out in front of him. Again, these are the subtle changes that we're seeing of more the modern sort of swing, and as well, obviously, with Charlie being a little bit smaller than Tiger, as we've already said. So he's a little bit more body rotation. Then through the ball, again, Tiger's just got a little bit more drive through that right leg. Just get rid of that line. You'll see both of them nice full release. Again, with those hands being more in front of him, Tiger's, those arms are a little bit more out in front, whereas Charlie's a little bit more around. Again, it's the sort of typical thing we're seeing now. In the early 2000s, everybody copied Tiger, very upright swing out in front of him, whereas now we're seeing more that McIlroy, Ricky Fowler almost around the body sort of swing. So you see big leg drive up with Tiger there. Let's bring him to a similar position. Again, very similar in terms of what the body's doing, but very, very different also. You'll see that, look at those shoulders of Tiger, a lot more vertical, whereas Charlie's a little bit more level. That's again primarily due to that flatter plane with the arms and more body rotation from Charlie, whereas Tiger's a little bit steeper, a little bit more in front of him. You'll see how the club exit's much more over his left shoulder than Charlie, where it's much more around. Let's bring them both to a similar position. You can see how the hands with Tiger directly over the left shoulder pretty much, whereas Charlie is a lot more left than Tiger. Just a byproduct of obviously modern day teaching, much more around. You'll see again. Let me just get rid of all those lines. It's getting a bit messy. Both up onto the toes. Again, like I say, Charlie's just a little bit more around, more McIlroy-esque, I'd say. Lovely finish. Very, very similar here in the finish in terms of that club wrapping round and really powerful. Now, what I would say that there is a lot of similarities, but there's a lot of differences. To the naked eye, the swings will look similar in tempo, and there's a lot of similarities in terms of the leg drive, this left foot. If I bring it back, you'll see, watch Tiger's left foot, how it snaps up and out. That's a very common thing we see with all players really, so it's not just Tiger. Watch Charlie. Doesn't do it so much on that swing, but I can assure you when he's going after one, he does whip that left foot back. So similarities there, but is it a carbon copy? Not at all. Like I say, if you look at it from the sort of average golfer's perspective, it will look very similar in terms of the flow and the rhythm and subtleties like just where the club is, but when you actually break it down, it's a very, very different swing. But if we just look at, say, for instance, setup, what your average golfer is going to look at, very similar. Up to the top, it's going to look very, very similar to most guys, but when you break it down from a technical perspective, very different. And then if you look at the follow through, we're going to go, oh, that looks really similar, but they're very, very different swings. It's more of a, I like to think of it as like a blend between almost Tiger in 2000 and McIlroy. I'm going to do another analysis with McIlroy that'll be on my channel, and that kind of blends it too. And I think that Tiger, I don't know who Charlie gets coached by, I'm assuming it's Tiger mostly, that you can see that influence of that McIlroy modern day flattened swing and also that Tiger swing of 2000.